Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Look, let's jump right in, because today we're tackling something that literally changes lives. We're talking about financial literacy. Now hold on, this isn't just some boring lecture about how to save a few pennies by skipping your morning coffee. No, financial literacy is the fundamental shift from working for income to making your assets work for you. It's about finally stepping off that exhausting treadmill and building systems that generate wealth on autopilot.
But before we get into the actual how-to, you've got to ask yourself a rather puzzling question. Why do people pulling in incredibly high salaries still end up completely broke? I mean, we all know someone exactly like this, right? They make amazing money, yet by the 30th of the month, the bank account is scraping zero. The thing is, we fall into this massive trap. We think that physical paper note in our wallet or that digital number sitting in our banking app is actual wealth. Well, I'm here to tell you, that is a massive illusion, and it's the exact illusion keeping 99% of people permanently stuck in the rat race.
Okay, let's dive right in. To break free from that trap, we're going to walk through a 5-step financial blueprint today. 1. The illusion of money. 2. Income versus true wealth. 3. The wealth-building system. 4. Mastering banks and debt. And finally, number 5, the ultimate goal, freedom.
Starting with Section 1, the illusion of money.
So, let's shatter this myth right out of the gate. Thousands of years ago, humanity used the barter system. You know, I give you some rice, you give me some milk. Simple, right? Except it required a double coincidence of wants. Basically, we both had to need exactly what the other person had at the exact same time. Honestly, it was a logistical nightmare. Plus, you can't exactly save a goat in a vault for 10 years. So we invented our absolute greatest tool, money. Money acts as a medium of exchange, a unit of account, and a store of value. But on a much deeper level, money is simply stored effort and stored choice. When you work a 9-hour shift, you are literally converting your sweat and your time into tradable value. That piece of paper, or that digital number, only has power because of our shared belief system. Ultimately, money is just a system used to command the time and labor of others.
To really wrap our heads around this, let's look at two totally contrasting approaches from our source material. First, imagine a guy named Kaju. Now, Kaju is a really hard worker, but he's financially illiterate. He constantly chases income, he has zero patience, and he confuses the cash sitting in his checking account with true wealth. Contrast that with Mota Bhai. Mota Bhai gets it. He's financially literate and understands the matrix of money. He doesn't worship money, he just treats it as a tool. So while Kaju is out there burning himself out working purely for cash, Mota Bhai is patiently building assets that go out and work for him.
Which brings us to Section 2, income versus true wealth.
This is the critical behavioral trap that keeps those high earners, the Kajus of the world, completely broke. Think about this quote for a second. Wealth is when your assets make money while you sleep. It completely flips the script. You see, income is just a flow. It's the monthly salary, the rent you collect, the business revenue. Income is simply what keeps you alive today. But wealth? Wealth is what you own. It's the land, the equity, the businesses. True wealth is reaching a point where you literally do not have to get out of bed to work because your assets are busy generating cash while you're snoring. Wealth is what buys your freedom.
A great way to visualize this difference is to imagine a tap and a bucket. Your income is the tap, a constant rushing flow of water. Your wealth is the bucket sitting underneath, catching and storing that water. Now, Kaju might have a massive tap. He's pulling in a huge salary. But if he instantly blows it all on showing off his lifestyle, well, his bucket has a giant hole in it. We call this high income, low retention. And listen, it doesn't matter how fast the water is blasting out of the tap if the bucket simply can't hold it. It's those invisible leaks, the daily overpriced coffees, the random online impulse buys. They slowly but surely drain the entire bucket bone dry.
So moving to Section 3, the wealth-building system.
How do we actually fix that leaky bucket? We look at the actual data-driven system that Mota Bhai uses to build his massive financial surplus. And it starts with the classic 50-30-20 rule. Now, when someone like Kaju hears the word budgeting, he immediately cringes. He thinks it means pure restriction and absolutely no fun. But Mota Bhai knows a budget isn't a restriction at all, it's direction. It's simply telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went at the end of the month. 50% covers your absolute needs, rent, groceries, the basics. 30% goes to your wants, like streaming subscriptions or eating out, so you don't feel completely suffocated. And 20% goes straight to savings. And here's the kicker. Saving has to be your very first expense, not some afterthought if there happens to be a few bucks left over. Once you've got that surplus going, you apply it to the 5 levels of the saving pyramid. Step 1 is income. That's your base. Step 2 is saving, actually taking action to retain it. But step 3 is absolutely non-negotiable. The emergency fund. You need 3 to 6 months of living expenses completely locked away in a separate bank account. Because look, life happens. Medical emergencies, unexpected job losses, they are a reality. If Kaju skips this step and jumps straight into the stock market, the minute an emergency hits, he's forced to sell his investments at a massive loss. Mota Bhai builds that bulletproof safety net first, then moves confidently to step 4, investing, which inevitably leads to step 5, true wealth.
And starting that pyramid early, it is literally everything. This is where we see the absolute magic of compounding and the time value of money. Let's break down the math. Mota Bhai starts at age 25, investing a pretty modest 5,000 rupees a month. Now, Kaju waits until he's 35 to get serious and tries to speedrun it by investing 3 times as much, 15,000 rupees every single month. But check out what happens by age 60. Mota Bhai is sitting on a staggering 3.2 crore, completely crushing Kaju's 1.8 crore. Without time on your side, compounding is incredibly weak. But with time, compounding makes you an absolute financial juggernaut.
Okay, let's jump to Section 4, Mastering Banks and Debt.
To actually build real wealth, you have to decode the matrix of debt and leverage. You have to understand what a bank really does. So many people think a bank is just a giant safe locker for your cash. It is not. A bank is a highly efficient financial middleman. When Kaju deposits 100 rupees to earn a tiny 4% return, his money doesn't just sit in a vault gathering dust. By law, the bank only has to keep a tiny fraction of that in reserve. They turn right around, take the other 90 rupees, and lend it to Mota Bhai to fund his business, but they charge him 10% interest. The bank pockets that 6% difference as pure, unadulterated profit. Kaju's money is working hard, sure, but it's working to make the bank rich by multiplying money throughout the whole economy.
And the master controller of this entire game? That's the central bank. And they control it using something called the repo rate. Think of interest rates as the actual cost of money. During the COVID crash in early 2020, the central bank dropped the repo rate down to a historic low of 4.0%. Money became incredibly cheap to borrow. So people took out huge, cheap loans, pumping massive amounts of cash into the economy and the stock market. But fast forward to 2022. With global supply chain chaos, inflation absolutely skyrocketed. Everything got too expensive. To cool things down, the central bank slammed on the emergency brake, hiking the rate all the way up to 6.5% by 2023. Suddenly, money became expensive, EMIs shot up, people stopped buying as much, and inflation was slowly wrestled back under control. The interest rate is quite literally the accelerator and the brake pedal for the entire economy.
Because that cost of money fluctuates, you have to treat debt with extreme caution. Debt is basically just spending tomorrow's income today. Now there is bad debt, which Kaju absolutely loves. This is swiping a card for an EMI on the newest iPhone or a flashy car. It continuously drains money straight out of your pocket. EMIs are this sweet poison because they completely disguise the real cost of whatever you're buying. But then there is good debt. This is what Mota Bhai leverages. Good debt is borrowing money to acquire an asset that actively puts money into your pocket. Think of an education loan that drastically boosts your earning power, or a business loan that generates real, scalable revenue.
And honestly, we've got to acknowledge why falling into that bad debt trap is easier today than at any point in human history. It's the cashless society trap. Back in the day, when we used physical cash, peeling off notes and handing them over caused literal pain in your brain. It forced a moment of hesitation. Today, scanning a QR code or tapping a digital wallet like UPI entirely removes that friction. You glance at your phone, type a PIN, and poof, the money vanishes. Kaju overspends blindly because he literally doesn't feel the money leaving his hands anymore.
So, how do the ultra-rich use this whole banking system to their advantage? They use a concept called leverage, using just a fraction of your own money to control a truly massive asset. Let's look at Shah Rukh Khan. When you bought his iconic property Manad for 13 crore rupees back in 2001, he didn't hand over a briefcase full of cash. No way. He put down just 2.6 crore as a down payment and financed the rest with a bank loan. By utilizing his assets to cover those EMIs, the property effectively pays for itself over time. Fast forward to today, that loan is gone and the property is worth well over 200 crore. He used other people's money to build astronomical generational wealth. That right there is the pure magic of leverage.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 5, the ultimate goal, freedom.
Because you have to ask, why do all this? Why track a budget? Why obsess over compounding? And why master leverage? Well, the end game isn't just to hoard digital numbers in a spreadsheet or park 5 Ferraris in a garage. First things first, to even guarantee a future, you must protect the wealth you build. Imagine Kaju actually gets his act together, builds a great investment portfolio, but then gets hit with a catastrophic medical emergency and has absolutely no health insurance. His entire life savings wiped out in a single afternoon. Total financial disaster. Mota Bhai completely neutralizes this threat through risk pooling. By paying a relatively tiny premium for health and term life insurance, he literally transfers the massive risk of disaster straight to a giant insurance company. Listen, insurance isn't designed to make you rich, but it absolutely 100% stops you from becoming poor overnight. You have to build a fortress around your wealth first before you can grow it.
And once that wealth is protected and multiplying, you are aiming for one specific, beautiful mathematical formula: true retirement. Forget the old idea that retirement means turning 60, getting a gold watch, and finally being too old to work. That's outdated. True retirement is the exact moment your passive income, the dividends, the rental yields, the returns from your portfolio, becomes greater than or equal to your monthly living expenses. The exact second your money starts working harder than you do, you are financially independent. If you hit that mathematical formula at 35, guess what? You're retired at 35.
Which leaves us with one final, incredibly vital question for you to answer today. Are you going to act like Keha, endlessly grinding just to increase your income, just so you can buy more useless things that keep you chained to a desk? Or are you going to be like Mota Bhai and take absolute responsibility for your financial literacy starting right now? Look, the entire system out there is heavily designed to keep you spending and borrowing, but a budget is your map, saving is your vehicle, investing is your fuel, and freedom? Freedom is the destination. The choice to stop working for money and finally make your assets work for you starts today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.